Screenless. Hello and welcome to another Creative Cuppa. I hope you're doing okay. You may have noticed some sleigh bells there. Today's guest put in a special request as today is December the 1st, so you can thank Amanda for that. It was an excuse to break out the sleigh bells I bought from an antique shop a couple of years ago. If you head to at Screenless Pod, you'll see a photo of them. They are huge. Today's chat seems to have a sliding doors theme when you're faced with a life choice and it changes everything. Amanda's had a couple in her career, and what a career. She's been involved with everything from Simon Mayo's radio show to Jonathan Ross and Alan Carr to SMTV and Saturday Night Takeaway with Ant and Dec, later with Jules, TFI Friday, The Voice Kids, the list goes on. So hopefully you'll have a cuppa in hand, sit back and enjoy this chat I had with script supervisor Amanda Faulkner. Amanda Faulkner, television script supervisor, welcome to Creative Cuppa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So, Amanda, what does being a television script supervisor involve on a day-to-day basis?
Well, you are involved in bringing the show together in terms of prep, getting the camera script made and broken down into sections of what's happening so that everyone can see exactly what's happening next, or what's happening at the time, what's happening next, and what shots the director will want. So you break the whole script down, break all the elements down and create a camera script, which then gets sent off to print for the studio day. So the two sides of being a script supervisor are the prep and getting everything broken down in advance. And then on the studio day, you're basically involved with dealing with the timings, dealing with standing by all sorts of departments ready for any particular cue that's coming up. And similar to an event caller, basically, that you are calling through a programme as well as keeping everything running completely to time.
Yeah. You mentioned before we started recording that in the US it's called assistant director, basically.
Yes, and that is much more, I think, of a good description of what we do. A script supervisor, lots of people think I write the scripts. I have nothing to do with any of the actual writing of the scripts.
You're just supervising it. You're just keeping it company.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And I do look after it on the prep day. Yeah, assistant director describes the job much better. I think you literally are sitting next to them in the gallery and you're letting them know exactly where you are and what's happening and getting everyone ready for their moment.
What's it like being up there while the show's going on? There must be a hive of activity.
Yes, it is. It's very exciting. I think it's got a very exciting atmosphere. When you've got a good show like that where there's lots going on, there's lots of, the best ones are the ones that have got lots of performances, that have, live shows. You always get a great adrenaline rush. Everyone's very excited, but also right on the edge of your seat because anything could go wrong at any time. And at that stage, if something goes wrong, doesn't go to plan, what is the plan? What are we going to do? What shot are we going to? Or what are we going to next? If someone falls off the high ropes and we're on a live show, you need to cut away from it. What are we going to cut to? Where are we going?
A&E, probably.
Yes, exactly. Well, you hope that somebody will come in and take them off to A&E, and we'll carry on and do the show until we come off air. Let's
go back to the start, because you didn't start in TV at all, did you? You started in radio.
Yes, I started off in radio. So when I left school, I was umming and ahhing as to where to. I sort of knew that I was heading to London. Didn't have a particular strong feeling of where I was going. Sort of thought I'd go into maybe a bank or insurance companies. I was applying left, right, and centre. And one of my teachers at school happened to say to me, "Have you written to the BBC?" Because I said that I was writing to lots of places in London. I said, no, I haven't actually. And she said, I hear they're a good employer. It might be worth writing. So I thought, okay. Which is funny because since then I had many friends at BBC who said to me they had tried time and time and time again. Their biggest wish in life was to work for the BBC and they never got there. And I wrote this letter off and got an interview. And in actual fact, it boiled down to two jobs that I was offered. One was at the Bank of England and one was at the BBC as a secretary. And I remember my dad saying to me, the Bank of England was paying slightly more, BBC was paying less, but my dad said to me, it's not always about how much they're offering. It's not always about the money. Think about where things might lead and what job you'll enjoy more. And he said, I just think BBC you might find that it leads you down a more interesting path and different opportunities and things. And
that's
a
amazing.
really sort of turning point there where because it was all about the money before that.
Yeah, but a real sliding doors moment, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So yes, I went for the BBC job, and not really knowing anything about telly or radio. Well, I didn't know anything about them at that point. I got a job as a secretary in the contracts department. We were doing contracts for Radio 1, and just by working there I sort of got to deal with a lot of the departments within Radio 1 and thought, actually that's where I'd like to go. I would like to, and the BBC were very good at advertising internally their jobs and doing a lot of training courses as well. So I went for several interviews at Radio 1 and then got a job there. So I moved from the contracts department to working on, I did at first a lot of the weekend type shows at Radio 1, and then I got to work on the breakfast show and worked there for about 2 to 3 years with Simon Mayo. Brilliant. When he was doing it, and I absolutely loved that. That was a really fun time. That was good fun.
Because you'd have had the road shows as well.
Yeah, went out on the road shows, which I had an absolute blast. They were brilliant fun, really, really good fun going out on. So, yes, I worked in Radio 1 for several years and absolutely loved that. I hadn't really thought about where my next move was going to be or what to do. But then the producer that I was working with on Radio 1 at the time, he left because he got headhunted to go and produce Top of the Pops. So he made the move over into TV. So he produced that for probably 6 or 9 months or something. And then he called me and said, would you fancy coming and working with me again? How do you feel about coming over to TV, and we can get you on sort of training course and learn a bit more about how TV works, because it's very different. And so I made the leap again. Again, it was just one of those sliding door moments, and I thought, okay, go for it. And I went to work in entertainment department at the BBC and did the training course for script supervisor training, although it was called production assistant training in those days. But they sort of spend quite a lot of time in mock studios, and you sort of, they go through all the processes, breaking down music, which is an area that a lot of script supervisors, they sort of, you choose your area. So there are drama ones that are very into continuity. That's their area. They sort of, when you're filming take 75, they spot that the man had his drink in the other hand. I think that is not me. I cannot do that. So I did plenty of that on my training course and thought, I find this really hard. And also standing in a rainy field, doing take 75, I don't find that fun. I've lost my sense of humour. So I decided that light entertainment and a dry gallery is much more me. And so a lot of them, whereas I say continuity is not for me, there's lots of script supervisors would say, I can't do music, I can't do the music breakdowns. And similarly, lots that say, I never want to do live, I don't want to do live TV, I'd much rather be doing pre-recorded stuff. So we all sort of have an area that we specialise in, and music and live is my sort of area. That's what I like doing. Yeah,
and that's taken you to all sorts of amazing places, isn't it? You went to Sydney a while ago.
I did. That was one of my favourite ever jobs, was to go and do Coldplay live in concert in Sydney, which amazing. Was absolutely amazing. In fact, they when I got the call about that, they said, it would be 4 days out there or something. It's be there for their rehearsals, obviously having to break down the music, work out where the guitar breaks are, where this break is, all of that. And it was not for a television show, actually, that was for a DVD. And so I decided that, actually, having never been to Australia, I would use the opportunity, and said to them, could I put my flights a bit earlier? I'm going to go out there 4 days ahead of schedule and just go and wander Sydney on my own. And I did, and it was amazing. So amazing. that was a fabulous job.
You were talking about the training scheme that you went into when you made the transition into TV. Do those things still exist nowadays? Well,
I don't think the BBC do them anymore. When I was there at the BBC, that was a big thing at the time. There are so many different training courses for all the staff. But of course, they've made a lot of those sort of production staff all redundant. And it's, they use a lot of freelancers now. It's mainly freelancers. Whereas it used to be, we were all staff. So we had an entertainment department with, so many producers, directors, script supervisors, researchers, all there all the time, all year round. And now it tends to be freelancers come in and out. So I don't know what the BBC do, if they do any, in terms of that sort of training. But there are places, I think, like Ravensbourne College. There's one in Beaconsfield way that I know still do quite a few training courses for that sort of thing. But I think then you'd have to fund them yourself, whereas obviously that was just my luck really through the BBC. But I've taken part. I've had a call a few times. I've taken part in training courses where I've gone along and done my job, and there was one, it was a director's training course, so it was all directors there, and then they had to have people doing sort of the other jobs around them, so I went and did that. And then there was another general sort of TV production training course that I went and spoke on and spent a day, where the students were all taking it in turns to do the different roles in the gallery, and so we would sit next to them and sort of oversee, over their shoulder, and be there to help them and say, oh no, that don't do it quite like this, do it like this, and oh, don't forget that you need to do this. And they'd all move around, but in actual fact my position seemed to be the one that everyone was most scared of, and people didn't want to do it.
That's great though. That's great though.
Well, it's good for me.
Got a corner of the market
exactly there. It's good for me that not too many people want to do it. If you're a researcher, that's a very competitive job to get into. Everyone wants to be, start off as a researcher, but my area seems to be, just one that everyone says, oh no, I don't think I want to give that a go.
So if you could give advice to someone starting out in the TV industry now, what would that be?
Well, I've had quite a few sort of friends and friends of friends, and even my sister actually, that suddenly decided that they'd like to give TV a go. And my sister went from being a teacher and thinking, actually, you sound like you're having quite a good time at work, Amanda. I think I'd like to come and try it out. So I've always said, just get in any way you can. Get in as a, making tea, or in an accounts department, or, certainly go and be a runner, show that you're quite happy to work hard, work ridiculously long hours sometimes. I mean, this week I did a job where I left home at 7 o'clock in the morning and I got back home again at midnight. I mean, there are some really long days that can be quite full on. But, if you go there, you show willing, you work hard and you get yourself noticed, then, in this new freelance world, people then, a producer or a production manager moves on to their next job, or in my case, it's always the director that they get asked, okay, what team do you want on board with you? And then they choose who they want to bring. So all my work now is, I get a phone call saying, okay, we're doing this new program in, next month, and so-and-so is the director, and he's asked if you're available. So it's about getting yourself known and, and someone bringing you on board. So just my sister went in, she started in an accounts department, did her time there, worked for a year, again, made good contacts with the program makers, and sort of said, oh, can I come on board? Can I come and start and be a researcher, start at the bottom, or a production secretary or whatever, start at the bottom, get in any way you can, make those contacts, and make your own luck really, go show them how hard you work and you'll get on. So she did really well too.
There's a lot to be said actually for going through that experience and having experience of those other jobs, because it gives you a more rounded view of things anyway, doesn't it?
Exactly. I mean, the amount of directors that I work with that have either been floor managers or have been cameramen, because then exactly that, they understand the what the limitations of each area and what can be expected and what can't. There are a lot of sort of TV and film production courses, and it's sort of quite a popular thing, I think, for people going off to uni to try and do. So it's really, really competitive market to try and get into. And so I think it's all very well that you come out with an amazing degree on something, but until you've got experience, it's very hard to get your foot in. So you just got to be willing to get in there and get yourself known, more so than your qualification. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Amanda, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. But for now, thank you for joining me for a cuppa.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thanks again to Amanda for her time. Have you had a sliding doors moment in your career? I'd love to know if you have. You can find me on the social media using @ScreenlessPod, or send me a message on the Creative Cuppa webpage. That's www.creativecuppa.uk. Also, you can come and say hello on the Creative Cuppa Facebook group. The link is in the show notes. I may be running a little competition to win a Creative Cuppa mug, so go and join that group to be in with a chance. That's all for this episode, so until next time, thanks for joining me for a cuppa.